Hello guys, I'm back from another video, and today we're talking about what if Belle was from Terraria. So in the last video we talked about how after Belle was basically, minding his own business and going into a little bread shop so he can get some bread for himself and for her, aka Hestia, he would notice that a certain, advisor was there. In this case, the advisor was Aina. So, after talking to her and also telling her that, the reason why he doesn't really wear, armor is because he's actually wearing armor. Actually, not really. He didn't really tell her that exactly, but she did tell Belle that she should basically bring him to a Physis shop to basically get himself some armor. After all, he did get a lot of money and didn't really use it on armor or equipment, even though he technically does have equipment here. So, after a while of basically talking to her, they would basically decide to meet with each other tomorrow so they can go to a Physis shop. After arriving back home, he would decide to get some rest and so would fall asleep. The next day comes as Belle is basically, going around town as he would arrive at the meeting point. After seeing Aina, both of them would start to arrive at the Physis' shop. After arriving there, apparently Hephaestus was wondering if he wants to join their familia, even though he obviously declines. And after a while of bickering and talking, and also, Belle basically, deciding to, reveal his little power of basically hiding his armor, which, let's just say, shocks, Aina, and also thinks that it's pretty much a waste of time basically being here, but either way, she would decide to make some armor just for fun. And for Belle, apparently, Physis doesn't really have any, materials left at all. So Belle would basically go outside and basically grab some, bars from his, Gate of Babylon style portal. In this case, they were Adamantite, Demonite, and finally, Crimtane. So, after arriving back at the, at their little, Physis shop, or the Physis, Physis' shop, he would basically show off the medals, which intrigued her. And after telling her to just make some, weapons for herself, he would decide to leave with Aina, and after that, they would basically, go their separate ways. The next day comes as Belle is basically going home after a little, job of basically, taking down some monsters. But when he was about to, arrive at the exit, he would bump into a person. In this case, a girl that's wearing some sort of beige, cloak, and she would leave with, Belle basically trying to say sorry to her. But after, looking at his pockets, it turns out that he sort of lost some crimson seeds, or was it called red seeds, or whatever you want to call it. I kind of forgotten the name of the actual item, which are meant to be used for, a little mission of his. He was planning on making a little, place that's basically similar to the Crimson in the dungeon. But after the girl found it, she would decide to try and steal it, thinking that it's probably some viable, items. And not only that, he sort of had the idea of basically fighting against the Eye of Cthulhu, which, she also stole. So, after the girl basically stole the items, she would basically throw them thinking that they're useless. And not so coincidentally, it was at night as well, so causing it to basically summon the Eye of Cthulhu, and after drop and basically, throwing the, Crimtane seeds, well, oh boy, the Crimson would start to spread. So, after, deciding to, get this ready, because in case of, the Crimson spreading and also the Eye of Cthulhu arriving, well, Belle would basically start to get ready, and so would basically, wait for a second, would decide to basically bring in his ice mirror. After bringing in the ice mirror, he would basically teleport back to his home, or the, Hestia Familia household. He would basically arrive there at the nick of time, seeing several, face monsters and, I think they're called blood crawlers, at least I think so, and chimeras basically terrorizing the, city. The Crimson is basically spreading as, after a while of basically killing them, the real enemy arrives. In this case, the Eye of Cthulhu. So Bell has been fighting this thing for a while now, as Bell is basically, using all of his weapons at once. But nearby, a bunch of idiots decided to destroy a large heart that seems to be, beating. And destroying the heart would cause the brain of Cthulhu to basically arrive. And Bell has to both, fight the, Crimson Monsters, the Eye of Cthulhu, and the Brain of Cthulhu at the same time. And so Bell would do. As every single familiar there, mostly the Hephaestus, Loki, Freya, and finally Apollo familiar were there and basically watching Bell all by himself, basically taking all of this by himself, basically, defeating all of them by himself. Actually, I'm saying that a lot. Either way, Bell has been, taking them down for a while now, as Bell would basically defeat the Eye of Cthulhu and basically grabbing the treasure bag. As Bell would look over, as he would see the Brain of Cthulhu basically in his second stage and basically, creating clones and trying to, desorientate, Bell. As Bell would basically finish it off, as he would basically grab the treasure bag of the Brain of Cthulhu. So, after grabbing the Clantaminator and some, green solution, he would change back the area once again to a normal, city street. And would also grab the missing, pouch of used to be, Crimson scenes, and they seem to be all gone. Bell would just basically sigh, but thankfully he did defeat the Eye of Cthulhu and the Brain of Cthulhu as a bonus. And so, Bell would basically decide to leave, not before, the Hephaestus Familia would, report this to, Hephaestus, which caused her to try and maybe even, make some advances to Bell, because all of you decided for Bell to be, shipped with Hephaestus. So yeah, that is basically what happened last episode. And so, let's talk about what happens next. So, we go to a different perspective. In this case, a normal-ish girl. In this case, the girl from the last episode, with the almost dog-like ears and tail. She was currently being beaten on by a few men, as one of them would say this: "You didn't get anything? As usual, you're useless." As one of them would basically step on her tail, as he would say this: "Anyway, let's go. She's useless anyway." As everybody would basically, start to leave the poor little girl alone, as she would say this: "I tried my best." She would basically start to cry even more, as we go back to Bell. So, Bell is basically still in the dungeon, just minding his own business, basically just killing some monsters thanks to the help of his, SDMG. As for a while now, he's been, just killing monsters and getting some monster cores just to pay, or just to, get some normal-ish necessities. Even though he can just get food by himself, just get clothes by himself, thanks to the Gate of Babylon style portal. But Bell would decide why not just use the money instead. I mean, we're basically drowning in it. So, after a while of basically doing that, Bell would basically, get an idea in his head. And so, Bell basically grabs a few seeds. In this case, seeds from the jungle biome from Terraria, that one. He would also get some corruption seeds, and finally some seeds for the Hallowed. Even though it's technically still in let's just say he's currently still in not yet hard mode yet. So, let's just say, this is technically somewhat hard mode-ish, I guess. So, he would decide to basically throw the seeds in random places. Putting the hallowed seeds maybe a few meters away, then putting the, corruption seeds nearby, and finally putting some of the, wait for a second, the jungle seeds in a far-off place, so they can grow and create more mobs so he can basically kill the, bosses of those respective areas. Even though the Hollow doesn't really have a boss, unless if you count, the Empress of Light, but we'll be talking about that later. And let's just say the Empress of Light is definitely going to be an interesting character. You probably know why. So, as Bell is basically, done, Bell is basically, basically going back to the guild. After arriving at the guild, he would basically put all of his stuff, or mostly the monster cores, in his, in front of the, receptionist. After getting his Valis, he would basically start to move out, as you would see the girl from the start of this video, aka, the, beaten down girl, aka the one that literally has the dog-like tail and also, ears. As she would say this, she was basically just like, whimpering and crying, as Bo would say this. Hey, are you okay? As she would say this. Oh, I'm fine. As Bo would say this. You're not fine. I mean, just look at you. As Belle is basically, tending to her wounds, as Belle would say this. Here. As for a while, basically, going through his, Gate of Babylon style, like, his Gate of Babylon style portal, he would grab a instant heal potion. Or at least I think so. Let me just check the actual name. Yeah, I'm just gonna call it an instant health potion. So, after giving her that, she would say, I'm no longer hurting. Thank you. As Belle would say this. Anyway, are you okay? Do you need anything? As she would say this. I need money. I also need. As Belle would say this. Yeah? As she would say this. I need to pay back to them. As Belle would say this. Did somebody beat it on you, or... As she would say this. No, I just need to pay them. As Belle would say this. Oh, sure. As Belle would basically give half of his Valis to her. As she would say this. Are you sure you're gonna give me this? I mean, it's pretty much a lot. As Belle would say this. Oh, don't worry. Besides, I have a lot more. As Belle would basically rub the top of her head. As Belle would say this. Anyway, I should be leaving. See ya, kiddo. As Belle would basically start to leave. As Belle would say this. And by the way, I've forgotten to tell you my name. The name's Belle Cornell. How about you? As she would say this. Oh, Lily Arde. I'm thankful. As Belle would say this. So, do you have any weapon? I mean, you're an adventurer too, so... As she would say this. Oh, I don't really use a weapon. As Belle would say this. I see. Anyway, see ya. As Belle would basically leave her all by her lonesome, she would say, thank you. After saying that, we basically move back to Belle. Belle is basically going around the street as he would basically arrive back home. After putting his Valis near her, near her goddess, or near his goddess, aka, Hestia, she would say this. As usual, you basically pay a lot. As Belle would say this. Well, that isn't surprising. As she would say this. Anyway, you can have a rest day today, because, you don't really have any work. As Belle would say this. Oh, cool. As she would say this. Hey Belle. As Belle would say this. What is it? Wait for a second, I know. As Belle would look at her as, she would say this. Well, do you want to go to the Monsterphilia? As Belle would say this. Monsterphilia? As she would say this. Oh yeah, I've forgotten to tell you. The Monsterphilia is basically one of those, tournaments where you're able to basically show your power to everybody. You can mostly go there to basically fight off monsters. As Belle would say this. Sure, I guess. As she would say this. Cool. Maybe we can go there tomorrow, because, you don't really need to work tomorrow, so... As Belle would say this. I would like that. As Belle would basically smile as she would say this. Great! I guess you can just do whatever you want now. As Belle would say this. Yeah, it seems so. Anyway, I'm gonna go out and basically have dinner. You wanna come? As she would say this. Oh, sure. So, as Belle is basically, waiting for her, she changes into a normal-ish dress from her, more skimpier clothing. After wearing this, Belle would say this. Well, you certainly look dashing. As she would say this. Yeah. So, Belle would basically, take her hand as both of them would start to leave. As Hestia would say this. As usual, you're quite the gentleman, she would say, as Belle would say this. Yeah, yeah, I know. And so they would arrive at a nearby, you know, tavern. In this case, the Hostess of Fertility, which is a pretty, like a pretty, common place for adventurers to basically eat. And it's pretty much the only place that I know in Terraria that you can eat there, or at least I know about. So, as Belle would basically, arrive at the, Hostess of Fertility and basically opens the door, everybody would look and see Belle Cornell in all of his glory. They know of him because, he rarely wears his armor. And if he does, everybody would start to think that he's either insane or just that powerful for not even wearing his armor. After, arriving at the, at a nearby table, Belle would basically order some food. After ordering, basically, after ordering it, Belle is basically, watching some of the people there basically, talking to each other. Mostly about Belle being here with his goddess, as everybody's basically saying, damn, Hestia's pretty lucky. As some gods are basically there, she probably just bribed them with her body or something. Some gods are basically snickering to themselves, as Belle would just look at them in a little bit of rage, but just controls it. As nearby, he would see the Loki Familia, and one of them is eyeing him, specifically a certain Heinz Wallenstein. But Belle would just look back and just see, another few people basically watching him. More specifically, the Hephaestus Familia. And one of them, specifically Hephaestus herself, is basically looking back at Belle. As Belle would say this. I don't really know why, but I feel like something bad is gonna happen. So, after saying that under his breath, Belle would see that their food is finally arriving, and so they would start to feast. So, after a while of basically, drinking some ale, as Belle is basically, not really drunk, thanks to the help of a certain, ability of his, or one of his, wait for a second, one of the, equipable items in his, armor, which is, I think it was a poison-based, one that specializes in, reducing the poison effect. So, Belle currently is not really affected by the alcohol. Just imagine it just like in, solo leveling, how Sung Jin Woo, when he tried to get drunk, the poison, resistance would basically just like, nah, you're not allowed to get drunk. So, yeah. So, as Belle is basically, just drinking to his heart's content, one person would say this to him. Hey, what have a drinking contest? As Belle would say this. Oh, I guess. As he would say this. You're certainly gonna get defeated. After all, Big Johnny is pretty big. And not only that, a pretty much a big winner in these types of games. As Big Johnny over there, basically the one that challenged him, would say, yeah, hope you're ready. And so they would start drinking. Belle would not be affected by the alcohol or just the taste in general. To him, it just tastes like carbonated water to him. It just basically tastes flat, but a bit fizzy. Or at least somewhat fizzy. I mean, it's kind of. As currently Big Johnny is basically, basically about to, vomit. Everybody's just like looking at him as Belle would just, start drinking even more, as everybody would just start to think, how the fuck is he taking all of that, ale? As Belle is basically on his, almost last drink, as Big Johnny would fall to the ground, basically, flat out drunk and basically vomiting. As everybody would just look at Belle, as one person would grab his hand, being Hestia, as she would say, we declare him the winner, as everybody would start cheering. As currently with the, Loki Familia, Loki herself was a bit impressed. After all, she is a drunkard herself, as she would say, huh, the kid has style, she would basically say, as currently with the Loki Familia, or more specifically with Bet, let's just say Bet is currently foaming at the mouth as usual. Currently with the Aphysis Familia, one of them is still looking at them, being Aphysis herself, as one of their, Familia members would say this. Damn, the Bell Kid certainly has the ability to, hold his drink. As one of them would say this. Yes, certainly. And damn, even Big Johnny couldn't even compare to him. As, Aphysis is just still looking at him, as she would say this. Yeah, that certainly is interesting. After saying this, she would basically keep her eye on Belle. After that, they would basically, end off their night with, just a normal, ish time. Basically just having fun and basically, still drinking. So, as Belle is basically about to leave, Belle would be approached by, Hestia. As Hestia would say this, Hey, Belle. As Belle would say this, Oh, hey, Hestia. As she would say this, Well, sorry for the wait. Phaistos, she wanted to talk to you. As Belle would say this, Talk to me? As she would say this, Yeah, but if you were to, per se, be told that Phaistos wanted to join your familia or join, that are, basically, try and recruit you, do not, and I mean do not try and, dare try to betray me. As Belle would say this, Trust me, I'm not gonna betray you, Hestia. As she would say this, Oh, okay, just promise that. As Belle would say this, Promise. As Belle would basically start to leave and going towards, Aphysis. As some of her familia members would basically start to move to basically make some space for Belle. As Belle would say this, So, what do you want? As she would say this, Well, as she would basically, gesture to all of her, members to basically get away and basically make some space for her and Belle. And so she would basically tell them that they're allowed to go home back to their shop, aka, to their main operations, or, main, wait for a second, my nose, aka their main base of operations. So, after gesturing them to basically leave, and so Belle and, Hephaestus would just be alone. As she would basically gesture to Belle to basically go into that specific alleyway. As Belle would say this. Sure. So, as Belle would basically follow her, as Belle would basically be, leaning on a wall, as Hephaestus would basically, look towards him, as Belle would say this. So what do you want? As she would say this. I'm really thankful for the medals that you basically gave me. And it certainly have been booming ever since, gave me those medals. Everybody's completely excited for it. And I wanted to say this. Thank you, Belle, for basically giving me those, those materials. As Belle would say this. It's not really anything special. So, what do you want? I think you're probably just, as Belle would basically, look at her, as Belle would say this. You probably want something more than that. As she would say this. Yeah, I guess you could say that. As she would basically, walk towards him, still leaning on the wall, as she would basically grab Izuku's, chin by her hand. As she would say this. I wanted to say this to you, Belle. I like you. As Belle would say this. Excuse me, what? As she would say this. I like you. I like you in many ways. Your talent, your intelligence, and your special ability of yours. As Belle would be flicked on the nose by, Aphysis, as she would say this. And oh yeah, I also like your appearance. I like your face. I especially love your red and golden eyes. I just love them. She would basically say, as she would basically start to come closer to him, as Belle would say this. What are you doing? As she would say this. Oh, nothing. I just want to do this to you. As she would basically grab Belle by his chin once again, as she would basically, put her arms across, put one of her arms on, Belle's, waist, as Belle would be kissed outright. Belle would basically start, would widen his eyes as she would say this. Don't try to escape. Still basically, trying to, open Belle's mouth with her tongue. But Belle would try to resist, but after a few seconds, Belle would, accept it. And so Belle would basically open his mouth and letting her, dominate his tongue. Belle would start feeling the pleasure and the euphoria from it. Feeling his entire body basically start to shake and almost submit to her. His spine would start feeling like jello. His entire body started feeling like jello. As she would say this. Well, how do you like that? After wiping her face, still, with saliva, as Belle would say this. That was euphoric. As Belle would basically, lean on the wall, basically, trying to, keep himself standing. As she would say this. Well, that was actually my first kiss. And you're pretty lucky for that. And Belle, as she would say this. Yeah? As she would say this. Do you want me to date you? As Belle would basically just look at her, as Belle would say this. As Belle would basically be just like a stuttering mess. As she would basically start to laugh a little bit. As she would say, you're not expecting that? As Belle would say this. Yeah, obviously, I mean, I don't really have an answer, so, as she would say this, I understand. So, I guess I could just, leave you for now. And I'll just tell you, and I'll just, tell me your answer tomorrow. Is that okay? She would basically smile as Belle would say this. Sorry, but I'm going to go on a little trip with Hestia to the Monsterphilia tomorrow. As she would say this. How about the next day, then? Just tell me your answer, okay? And by then, try not to fall in love with somebody else, got it? She would basically say, as Belle would say this. Right. Belle would basically hesitantly, saying that, as she would say this. Wonderful. Now, see ya, sweet cheeks. She would basically blow a kiss at Belle, as Belle would basically start, feel a little bit, awkward after hearing that, as Belle would say this. Belle was basically, malfunctioning at this point, as Belle would basically stop, as Belle would say this. Alright, I guess I should probably go back to Hestia. And so, Belle would basically arrive back, back at the church, and seeing, Hestia basically sleeping on the couch. After Belle seeing that, Belle would basically go onto his bed, and so he would also fall asleep, and after that, he would start going to Dreamland. So, let's go to a different perspective. So, currently in the dungeon, as currently the, seas that he's sort of spread would start to, spread. The jungle biome is fully taking effect, causing several dangerous-ass mobs, especially the goddamn hornets. Ugh, I hate them. They're my least favorite mob, for obvious fucking reasons. Actually, all of the mobs in the jungle biome are the fucking worst, especially the fucking turtle. And if you don't know what's the fucking turtle, you probably know what it is. Fuck that thing. And currently with the, hollow biome, the hollow biome would start, react. As it currently started, spreading as well. And as for the final biome, the corruption, it's fully taking effect. Creating more of those, monsters. I don't really remember the actual mobs of that place, but I do remember that there were, I think was called, worm things. I can't remember. They're basically smaller versions of the, Eater of Worlds. After that, we go to a different part of the dungeon. And this part of the dungeon was called, the dungeon. Which is, the Terraria dungeon. And currently, An old man is currently residing over there, as he would say this. I just hope somebody can break my curse. I just hope it. I just hope. Please. As you would hear a voice. Nobody's gonna free you. Nobody. After all, I am your damn master. After saying this, he would start clenching his hand, saying, "No, no!" His eyes would start to change a little bit, as he would scream out in pain. But nobody would hear it. After all, he's in a different part of the dungeon where nobody can ever hear him, even hearing his damn screams. So, I'm gonna be leaving this episode right off here, and so, I hope you liked the video, comment, and subscribe, and I hope to see you guys next time. Bye-bye!